What if the exhaustion you feel in your relationships isn't because you're not doing enough, but because you've been doing something that was never yours to do in the first place? Today, we're talking about one of the most important distinctions I've learned in my coaching journey, and that is the difference between being mindful of someone's feelings and managing them. And I promise that as you begin to understand this difference, it's going to help you see your relationships in a completely different light. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Seasons of Joy podcast. My name is Jill Pack, and I'm so glad you're here. Now, I want to just take a minute because this is episode number 200. 200 episodes. This is a big deal to me for a couple of reasons. First, I can't believe I've actually created 200 episodes. I'm so proud of myself for sticking with this journey because I've grown so much through this process. And second, the fact that you keep showing up, you keep listening, you keep doing the work, it means so much to me. So thank you, truly. Now let's dive in because I want to start today with a story of a little girl. She lives in a pretty normal home, nothing dramatic, not a lot of yelling, not a lot of chaos. And from the outside, everything looks fine. But she is a reader. She reads rooms the way some kids read books. She notices when the energy shifts at the dinner table. She picks up on the slight edge in someone's voice before anyone else does. She learns really early how to adjust herself based on what she senses in the people around her. She becomes very, very good at saying the right thing at the right time, and softening a moment before it gets too tense, at making people laugh when things start to feel too heavy, at disappearing a little bit when someone needs space. You may call her perceptive or empathetic or mature for her age, and she probably is some of those things. But underneath all of it, she's also doing something else, something she doesn't have the words for yet. She's working constantly, quietly, managing the emotional temperature of every room she walks into. She grows up, she gets into relationships, and she brings that same skill set with her because it worked. It kept things peaceful. It kept people happy. Until one day, she realizes she's exhausted, and she has no idea why. Maybe this sounds familiar to you. Maybe this sounds a little like you. It sounds a little like me. Now, for some of you, this story did feel familiar, but maybe a little too quiet. Maybe your version was louder. Maybe you grew up in a home where the emotional temperature didn't just shift, it turned into a storm, where you learned to read the room not out of sensitivity, but out of survival. You knew exactly what set things off. You worked hard to make sure that those triggers never got tripped. Keeping your younger siblings quiet, putting things away before they became a problem, holding your breath and waiting. And when an outburst happened anyway, and it did, you took it personally. You believed somewhere deep down inside of you that it was your fault for not managing it well enough. Two very different childhoods, two very different experiences, but yet the same learned belief. It's my job to manage how the people I love feel. And that belief, it follows us right into our adult relationships, into our marriages, our friendships, our parenting, because it worked once, or at least it felt safer than the alternative. One of the very first things I learned as I was becoming a life and relationship coach is this: we cannot make other people feel emotions. Now, I know this sounds almost too simple, and it was a big mind shift for me too, because we've all said it. You made me so happy. You made me feel terrible. And it feels true, doesn't it? But there is an important distinction. We can be a contributing factor to how someone feels. Our actions, our words, our energy, they do matter. But we do not have the power to generate an emotion inside another person. And we are not responsible for regulating emotions that belong to them. This is both incredibly liberating and incredibly uncomfortable, because if we can't control how others feel, then all that energy we've been spending trying to, it's been wasted. And more than wasted, it's actually been working against us. So what does managing someone else's emotions actually look like? Because it's sneaky. It disguises itself as being nice, being considerate, being a good partner or a friend. It looks like trying to stop someone from feeling anything bad, swooping in to fix, to soothe, to smooth over before a feeling even has a chance to exist. It looks like choosing your words so carefully, so intentionally and strategically that you're essentially trying to engineer or manipulate their emotional response. That's not communication. That's manipulation, even when it comes from a loving place. It looks like walking on eggshells, living in that constant low-level hypervigilance, monitoring their tone, their body language, the look on their face when they come through the door, so that you can preemptively manage the situation. It looks like holding your emotions inside because there isn't room for yours when you're so busy making space for theirs. It looks like taking responsibility when they feel upset, as if their emotional state is something you created and therefore something you must fix. And it looks like that exhausting, constant mental exercise of predicting. How will they take this? How will they react? What will this do to their mood? But notice, all of that takes an enormous amount of your nervous system's resources. Your body is doing work, real physiological work, to manage something it was never designed to manage. And over time, that can create resentment. Not because you're a bad person, but because the equation is impossible. You cannot win a game that cannot be won. It's important also to understand the nuance to this because we don't want to swing to the other extreme. Because the answer to overmanaging is not indifference. It's not detachment. It's not walking into your relationships with a not my problem attitude and calling it growth. I've seen that happen. Someone does this work, they start releasing responsibility for the other person's emotion, and somewhere along the way, it tips into something that looks less like freedom and more like hardness. And that's not what we're going for. The goal is to not stop caring how people you love feel. Of course their feelings matter to you. They should. You're in a relationship with them. You've woven together. What happens to them does touch you. That's not codependency. That's love. The difference is this: you can care deeply about how someone feels without making their feelings your responsibility to fix. You can be moved by someone's pain without believing it's your job to make it go away. Being mindful of someone's feelings is not the same as managing their feelings, and we have to hold both of these truths at the same time. Being mindful looks like sharing something hard with compassion in your heart. It looks like being patient when someone is learning and growing. It looks like giving someone your full attention when they're sharing, listening with the intent to understand, not just to respond, speaking to the tender parts of someone with care. It's asking yourself, does my love for this person show in the way I'm about to say this? Am I bringing them closer or pushing them away? That's mindfulness. That's love in action. But what is also equally true and equally important is that this is not always easy. There are some messages that need to be heard that are going to be hard to receive, no matter how gently you try to deliver them. Some people are going to be defensive or easily hurt, no matter what you do. It is not your responsibility to make sure your loved one never feels negative emotions. Boundaries, especially when shared with someone who isn't emotionally mature, are rarely going to go over well. And it's not your job. It has never been your job to make yourself small, to walk on eggshells, or to hold yourself back in order to keep someone else comfortable. So how do we actually live in this tension? How do we stay mindful without crossing into managing? Let's walk through it together. I have a scenario that I think a lot of you will recognize. Let's say you need to have a hard conversation with your spouse. Maybe it's about something that they do that's been quietly hurting you for a while. You've put it off because you don't want them to get defensive. You don't want to ruin the evening. You don't want to make them feel bad. So you've been carrying this alone, waiting for the perfect moment that actually never comes. So first, we want to get curious about what's driving the impulse. Before you say a single word, pause and ask yourself, why am I so afraid to have this conversation? Is it because I genuinely care about being kind, or is it because I'm trying to control the outcome? Is it because I need them to receive this well in order to feel okay myself? That's a question worth really thinking about, because if their reaction is what determines whether you're allowed to speak your opinion or perspective, you're already handing over your power before the conversation even begins. Second, you want to notice when your nervous system is in hypervigilance mode. You know what this feels like. Maybe your chest is tight. You're rehearsing and re-rehearsing. You're already managing their imaginary reaction. That's your nervous system trying to protect you the only way it knows how. Don't shame it. Just notice it. Oh, I'm in management mode right now. I'm trying to control something I can't control. That awareness alone starts to loosen the grip. Third, you want to bring yourself back into your body. Take a breath, ground yourself, remind yourself that your job in this conversation is to show up honestly and with care. Their job is to receive it, process it, and respond. Those are two separate jobs. I am only responsible for mine. It sounds simple, but for someone who has spent years managing both sides of every conversation, this is genuinely radical. You are responsible for you. And fourth, from that regulated, grounded place, offer empathy. Now you can actually be present. You can speak with kindness, not because you're engineering their reaction, but because you genuinely love them. You can say the hard thing and mean it. You can sit with their response, whatever it is, without collapsing or over-explaining or immediately trying to fix how they feel about what you just said. That's the shift from managing to mindful, from exhausted to present. Now, I want to leave you with a question. To what extent do you struggle with the line between mindful and managing? Where in your relationships are you carrying that emotional weight that doesn't even belong to you? And what might it feel like to gently, compassionately set it down? Now, if this is something you're working through in your own relationships, I would love to walk alongside you. My 30-day Conflict to Connection Challenge is completely free. It's a beautiful place to start. The link is in the show notes. And thank you so much for being part of this journey, and I will see you next week.